Steve, welcome to the podcast, brother. Steve wrote his first line of code on an Apple II computer in 1983 and has since worked in more than 20 programming languages across every major era of modern computing. As the founder of Restyn, he combines his entrepreneurial drive and Christian faith to reshape how businesses approach technology and service through the Bless mission, which is an acronym for Bless, Love, Empower, Serve, and Safeguard. With deep experience across full enterprise tech stack, Steve brings a grounded, people-focused perspective to every organization he serves. First of all, Steve, just by talking to you for a few minutes, I absolutely love your energy. I feel like you're just a great guy to work with, well-spirited, and you're good with people. That's what I can tell from just 2 minutes of talking to you, and that's a rare quality to find in the programming industry. We're usually good at talking to robots, but um, first and foremost, like I guess you wrote your first line of code on an Apple II computer, but uh, how were you like as a kid? I mean, were you just super geeked out? You loved programming, or did
Yeah, so 1983 Apple II, I was in kindergarten at the time. So, I
mm,
actually wrote my first line of code in kindergarten and then, kind of,
that's pretty
chased the
cool.
computer all the way through, my life. I was in, computer coding clubs after school, computer clubs and writing in, BASIC and then Pascal and then Turbo Pascal and then, oh my gosh, just go through every era through the dawn of networking, from like token ring to actual switched networks. And um it's
Fascinating.
it's been crazy to kind of see. And I built my own digital computer in college, from an 8088 processor all the way up, and wrote assembly to code in it, and using an oscilloscope as the display on it. And like totally, just, I don't know, I geek out. And I think it brings a different perspective to the machine. Like when you look at every single epoch of computing,
Yeah,
is driven by certain algorithms that kind of own the day, right? So you had the 20th century where you have kind of the dawn of real commercial computing. And then you have like relational databases. Then you watch everybody solve every problem there is known to man in a relational database. And then you see the message queue comes along, and all of a sudden we've got to solve every single thing with a feed, where we're gonna have a feed because we have this great algorithm. We're just gonna apply it. If you're uh, hammer, all the world looks like nails kind of
yeah,
idea.
yeah,
And now we have AI, and so everybody's got the buzzword. Every exec is saying, "Oh,
yeah,
we've got AI, artificial intelligence. This is amazing. Look at this thing." And it's really just a collection of algorithms. And when you look at it that way, you say, "All right, well, how, if you were an engineer, would you bring those algorithms to serve the people in your life, right? How would you make their lives better?" And we often get that wrong or backwards, right? So if you look at like social media, we called it social media, but you look at the outcomes it produces for the people it is trying to put into community, and you end up with a lot of interesting negative mental health outcomes and radicalization and isolation.
right.
And
Because the programmers are programmers. They're trying to think of how's the most efficient way to do this from a technical
well,
perspective, but not
it's
necessarily the use case and enhancing people's lives.
yeah.
You need like a psychologist to be programming, and these are very mutually exclusive industries. But
Yeah.
no,
I
yeah,
think
well,
any
well said.
any engineer that was given the task of solving the human problem would solve it very similarly. I think
Yeah,
that the problem is we often ask ourselves to solve the wrong problem. And so, like,
right, right,
if you said, "Hey, how would you build a machine to make you and I become better friends?" And have a closer relationship, understand each other better, like share our lives together, would you end up with one of the big social platforms, or would it look very, very different?
right.
And I think any engineer given that task would solve it differently if the task was to make intimacy in human relationships rather than influence in human
Right.
relationships.
But, it's kinda like we didn't know where we were heading. It was just like MSN Messenger was awesome, and then we're like, "Let's just do more
Oh
of
yeah.
this and add a few more features."
AOL Instant Messenger,
Before we
like
know it,
you.
we're all depressed and, crazy. But I kinda wanted to take a step back and kinda look at the historical timeline. So, 1983 Apple II computer, and you see how the integrated circuit kinda made its way through Pentium architecture, and then you had these
Mm,
multi-threading, and then we started realizing, hey, clock speed isn't really the solution, right? And we started having many processors,
yeah, Moore's
and
law
then
failed us.
yeah, and
Yeah.
then, we were governed by Moore's law for the longest period of time, and now we're at this really interesting place in this world where we're at the forefront of 3 sectors: quantum computing, blockchain, and AI. And each of these sectors in and of themselves, I think, supersedes the advancement of something like the Industrial Revolution.
Sure.
So, as someone who's been in this game for such a long time and has like literally witnessed the progression, is this really unprecedented, or we've had these big booms before and it's just another one of those? I'm curious, like, where in
Yeah.
this timeline was most fascinating to you, and looking at like the door, like we're kind of like pushing our foot through the door of a whole new era. How do you kind of see that, given your whole historical background?
I don't see that there is that much of a shift in um technology in some ways. It's more like it's easy to look back at previous eras in history and be like, wow, I wish I lived there because it's such easy problems they were solving. It's like, oh man, inventing a wheel, like that would have been like such an easy thing. I would have loved to be or inventing the automobile, like, oh man, that is so
I just needed zeros and ones to code. It would have been so
yeah,
much easier.
exactly.
It
Um,
was horrible. 3
but
weeks trying to debug things. That was horrible.
Yeah, and like I remember when computing was super expensive. So every like cycle the processor was expensive. Every bit you stored in memory or on a storage device was expensive. And so you were trying to
Yeah.
optimize to make it so it was like the fewest number of instructions in order to achieve the thing in the fastest way possible. And you still see that in game programming and other things. Um, I think quantum computing is definitely one of those like sea changes where we start thinking about problems differently, we start solving problems differently,
Yeah.
it starts opening up the problem set to being able to address things. I think it brings challenges when you come to like how are we going to secure things in a quantum computing world when you look at encryption and those kind of tasks. And so there's definitely a major revolution happening there. I think AI less so. I think when people actually get to ground and we get past the buzz and the hubbub of fanatical investment in anything that says AI after it, I think we're going to discover that it's a
Yeah.
really compelling tool
Sorry,
set
Steve. If you have
for
a startup, sorry to cut you off. If you have a startup and you put in AI and blockchain, man, you're like the coolest kid on
oh
the block now.
my gosh, let me just write a check now. Blockchain, I think, is actually more revolutionary in some ways than AI.
Mm,
AI, obviously, there's a whole range of technologies underneath AI, and it would be much more meaningful to talk about like large language models and neural networks and other machine learning algorithms as they're applied to specific engineering problems. And there's certainly cool opportunities in each of those elements when it comes to military applications or commercial
yeah.
applications. But all of them I feel like are much more incremental evolutionary changes. And I think we're going to get some fun things out of it. I think we're going to have a lot of challenges in human management until we actually figure out what the algorithms are actually doing. But I think blockchain is interesting because it proposes a different kind of collaboration between people, right? It provides a different mechanism for transparency, a different mechanism for processing transactions. You look at the financial markets and how we do anything from like you can imagine
Yeah.
like dark pools and are those things we get transparency into if we were operating on a blockchain, so we could have public accountability and all financial markets, like we've been talking about for I don't know, since Glass-Steagall or before, like hundreds of years.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of opportunity. It's more a question of what do we want to do, like what are the human outcomes we want to achieve, and I think sometimes we forget that. I mean, if you look at like the nuclear age dawning, our technology always outstrips our ethics and our morals, and when we think about the human impact second, we think about our technological
It,
advancements
it,
first.
it's kind of symbiotic, don't you think? Where like
Yeah.
what we want becomes what we're able to do, and then that's kind of like push and pull. But
Absolutely. So I
yeah,
think right now you like we're reading every day headlines about people laying people off in favor of AI algorithms, and I think it comes from a fundamental misunderstanding that AI can't lead; it can only follow. It's always a fast follower. It takes intellectual property from people, it synthesizes it, it
yeah,
aggregates it, it summarizes it.
but Steve, we're having this conversation, like where we're just like, from like in like the timeline of human existence, we're like in the
Oh my
first
god!
second of it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, today I agree with you. It doesn't lead, it follows, and it's like every week you have GPT
So
having an
ask
update,
yourself.
and you're like, God damn it, this is. This is not
Actually,
long. This is no
good.
longer weeks and months and years. This is like
Yeah,
super,
yeah.
super quick.
It does amazing things. But I
But
don't think
its delta is should be concerning. I mean, it's changing really, really quickly. And
it
it's
is, and it
excelling in areas we never thought it would excel in. Like we thought it would be really good with like programming and stuff. We didn't think it'd be making music and art,
yeah.
and it's doing
Well,
things that humans do really well, which is interesting.
so the question is it exercising judgment,
Right. Right.
right?
But
So
eh,
so if you want to compare, the reason I say it can't lead, you can only follow,
right.
is
I see.
the algorithms are built to synthesize human intelligence and summary judgment really well. So if I train on a large data set of art, I can create art that has similar elements and component
Right.
pieces to existing art. Is it going to be the next Da Vinci? No, it can't be the next Da Vinci, because that was a truly creative mind bringing novel, contribution
Yeah.
into the field, and we already see that. There's kind of the AI slop idea of computers are deterministic machines. The fundamental hardware architecture underneath of a computer is silicon that is static and is pre-wired before we ever start using it. A human brain rewires itself with every decision that it's making. It's fundamentally creative at the
Yeah.
electric level.
And this is going to tie into your Christian faith really beautifully, but let's pull this thread a little more. So, I completely agree with you that your chat gpt is just a collection of all the data, and it's the safest, most human approved result. It's your solid B plus, A minus student. And you're right to say that, like, superseding human beings is just not there yet, but that's a milestone, and it might literally blow right through that milestone in a completely unexpected way, where just it's a hurdle for now, and it's kind of like that 100K mark for bitcoin. It'll touch it 10 times and then it'll blow right through it, right? And
It depends on what you
there's
want
also
from it, right?
sorry.
I mean, it depends what you want from it, right? What do you
Well,
want from?
forget about what we want for just a moment. Like,
Okay.
like we're making this, no, but hang on, because I'm trying to pull this in a certain direction. We're
Yeah.
making this assumption
Hmm.
that you said that, like, it's silicon, it's not a brain, right? It doesn't
Right.
have that, it's not a brain, and a brain can reassess and it can learn, and a silicon, it just has, it has its base tools.
It's
It's like, and
fixed.
it's fixed, and it just processes your zeros and ones, and it has
It
output.
still has a clock speed. The human brain doesn't have a
But
clock.
you're making an assumption that there's something intrinsically magical about what's between our head.
Yes.
And the assumption is that it's mysterious and it's magical, but possibly it's just complex. And if it could be modeled, then it could be replicated. And
MIT's been trying to do this for a long time. They've managed to replicate one neuron.
yeah, yeah, and I mean,
We have
but yeah,
trillions of neurons. They managed. I mean, I'm not saying that
yeah, and also just yesterday we were in the rainforest with spears, right?
sure
So,
were. Yeah.
now we get a
Mystery,
text
very short.
message.
Yeah.
Like, and now we have like a message going from one place in the world to another, and we're not
Mhm.
surprised. But just like a few hundred years ago, even if the witch of your time would say that, you'd burn her at the stake.
Right.
Things move fast, my friend. But and this is a perfect conversation, because I want to know how this ties into your faith. So we're still in like the abstract fun conversation. We're gonna get into like the super cool work that you do, but first and foremost, I kind of wanted your perspective on, yeah, there is a dystopian view about AI, that, we're just like, we're ants, starting to build gods, and we're saying, don't worry, we have the off switch. And here's the thing, like, I always thought, if we were to, create an LP, and we would do it in a lab, and it would be done with like scientists in this confined sandbox. And the first version of an LP was like literally thrown into the wild, saying, "Hey, everyone, use it, and we're gonna try to, build it from there," which I
Yeah.
find completely fascinating. But there's a common argument of like, where is this heading? Are we in trouble? And is it always just going to follow us, or eventually we're not even going to realize that we're following it, kind of thing? So, does your faith navigate how you view all this? Does it play a role in it? And also, just broadly segueing with your faith, how does your faith navigate your day to day as a businessman and an effective entrepreneur?
So my faith is in Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, and He um, revolutionized the world by introducing the idea of individual human rights. And if you look prior to Christ, there was authoritarian regimes, there were collectivist, regimes. There's all sorts of people fighting for control over the world. And you have the Roman Empire, you have many empires before that, Greece and Persia, and you name it, running through the history of the world. And then Jesus shows up, and he walks through all the social classes without like picking one as his favorite. He talks to, and touches lepers. He talks to and touches kings. He'd like, they're all just people. They all have the same human struggle. They all have the same human needs. They all, are looking for answers to their sins and their, flaws and their imperfections. And he goes and he talks to women, he talks to men, he talks to Jews, he talks to Gentiles. Like, it's literally the full democratization of God. And what that tells me is that he was communicating very, very clearly that individual human rights are the key to prosperity, to abundance, to blessing, to
Mm,
peace, right? And when you focus on that, and you take that kind of humanist view, you end up with far better societies, far better communities, far better systems, far better corporations, far better processes, far better governments. And so that protection of the individual results in a collective benefit. And
mm.
I
I
see
like
that
that.
when you look at corporations, they often see people as, functions, or as roles, or as like dehumanized, cogs in a wheel type, thinking. But the corporations that understand the value of the people and what they actually do and what they actually bring to the table, and do much better. And I think if we understand that at the end of the day, every value proposition, every legacy, every impact, every customer, every team member, they're human. The future is human. And we're not going to get blown past, in the sense that it's never going to the value proposition is never going to trade, right? The value proposition is always going to be like, what legacy did I leave my children? What quality of life did I live while I was here? Who did I love? Who felt blessed because of me? Like, those are the end goals. Those are the results that we're targeting. And then saying, how are we going to use technology to forward that, to advance that, to empower that, to and when we see the creation of machines that are machines of mass destruction, whether it be psychological mass destruction, or emotional mass destruction, or physical mass destruction, doesn't really matter. We should be questioning that as a human race, saying, are these the way we want to use these machines? Those same machines could be used for creating farming, or going to the moon. Like, nuclear power is taking us all over the known universe, and spaceships powered by nuclear engines. It's incredible, right? The technology has a good use. We don't have to use it to destroy ourselves, right? What is the human value? What's the human outcome we want to achieve?
Right.
And I think when you turn it around, like, I've revolutionized so many business situations by just looking at, what information does the person need in order to do their job better? What functions and features do they need in order to provide a better customer experience, or a better outcome for their team? And when you focus on the individual people, you come up with algorithmic solutions that are way more scalable, way more stable, way more prosperous, that lead to cultural benefits, the force multiplying effects of employee satisfaction, and other things that you wouldn't think come from technology. Oh, well, technology can't do
Mm,
that. That's culture. That's leadership, or that's but it's all talk until you give me the tool that lets me, the lever lets me move the world.
right. That's a brilliant answer, and I love your human-centric approach to something that's so technical, and, there are millions of programmers out there, and I would say very few people think the way you do, and I think that your religious views have just help you navigate your day-to-day life in a very beautiful way, and your business life in a very beautiful way. How does that fall into your bless mantra?
Yeah. So Bless is a kind of, if you think of like Howard Schultz revolutionized the world with the idea of surprise and delight, right? He wanted to raise the expectations of people when they come in. And so when you walked into a Starbucks when they originally, under his tutelage, the idea was that you were going to get something more than what you were asking for, more than you would expect. You go anywhere and get a cup of coffee, but you come and you'd get, there was the smell of the coffee shop, and there was the experience of the relationship you had with the barista, and there was just a different level of service that you wanted to provide. And Bless is that same, once again, asking people to go deeper, right? When we think about corporate settings, are we thinking about loving? or are we thinking about just it's not personal, it's business? And when I say love, it means like how invested are you in the individual team members? When we, think about AI in the workplace, are we seeing that as a tool to empower people to upskill to become better at their jobs, or are we looking to try to replace the person who is maybe not quite as skilled as the more senior members? And then you think about what legacy that would create if you don't love the people you have, you don't invest in the people you have. In a generation, you're not going to have anybody who's senior or even mid-level, because you won't have brought the people along from entry-level jobs that are easily replaced by AI. Is that kind of thinking. So looking to bless is one level above looking to meet expectations, right? How can I walk away with somebody going like, I'm so glad I'm in this relationship, not just like I paid my dollar and I got my widget, but like I'm really glad that that I worked on it with this was so much better, right? Same thing with love, same thing with empower, right? When you think about organizations, oftentimes leadership kind of thinks from a top down ivory tower view about their people, and you imagine the people that are the executives are the most informed about the business. And what I've discovered over and over and over again is that the people who are most informed about the business are the people actually in the line level of a business doing the job every day, who see the flaws, who hear the feedback, who understand what needs to happen. And when you can build into the grassroots, you get way better, more innovative, more disruptive
Mm.
solutions than if you take the ivory tower visionary thinker and try to superimpose it in a hierarchical fashion down on an organization.
Yeah, it's again a very human centric approach. I love that.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. You're a programmer and you know how to talk to computers very well. It's a very different way of thinking when talking to people. I want to ask you this. With your experience and growth as a programmer, how has that helped and translated over to your personal life? Because I often tell people, even if you never want to become a programmer, taking a computer science course will greatly carve the way you think and function outside of programming. How
Yeah.
do you feel like that has affected you?
I think that programming is a phenomenal exercise in self-discipline. I think that it's a great way to develop your thinking about consequences, your moral reasoning of like, if I set up these rules, what are the implications of those rules, and what are the unintended consequences? So every developer
Mm,
knows like, well, I built it to have this feature, and then the first user starts using that, and they're using it to do something else. You're like, but that's not what I built it for. It's supposed to do this, and they're like, yes, but I want to use it to do this. And you're like, oh well, and so the ability to be wrong, I think, is one of the most powerful things. We're ultimately accountable to objective truth and objective reality. That silicon is going to do what that silicon is going to do every single time, unless there's a act of God or force majeure event. So you have the idea of being accountable to reality in it. You have the idea of becoming comfortable with being wrong, and looking for what actually is true, looking for what actually works, finding the thing that is the most efficient. I may come up with an algorithm that I'm like, oh, this is so cool, and I go to test it. I discover that it's not actually faster or better or whatever. And if I continue down that road and be like, well, this is still the best thing, you got to use it because it's slower and it's worse and it's bad, like that the pride doesn't get you anywhere, right? And
mm,
so being able to kind of submit to reality and be more dedicated to the result than to the ego is like that fundamental spiritual practice of being a developer. And it's also, you have to continuously learn, right? Like I look at all the different languages I've done, and at this point, I'll kind of blur together because machine is a machine. I'm talking to the machine. What language I'm using talking to the machine, I'm still telling the same machine to do the same thing. But the idea that somehow I'm gonna um, you know superimpose my will on that, and it's gonna behave differently, it doesn't work out that way. So I
mm.
think there's a lot of humility, a lot of courage, and you keep on learning because you have like the solutions keep on stacking, right? And so I think AI is a phenomenal opportunity to summarize, to aggregate, and to upskill humans to allow us to keep up with the rapidly changing
Right.
technological landscape. right? It's so much easier to do research now because of it, because it is. It's an auto summarization engine. It'll go out and read every
Yeah,
single doc there is and tell you out of all the docs, here are the ones most relevant to what you're working on. You're like, oh, thank you so much. Right? It's like the great lab
right.
assistant just going to help you out along the way. I think we view it that way. You get incredibly powerful humans empowered by it. The same thing, like you look at in defense, you have one warrior and you surround him with like which one is that? Which sci-fi is it where they have the little drones that pop off the back and fly around and give them
I
battlefield
haven't seen it, but
it I can't remember. It's one of the sci-fi, movies out there, but those kind of things, like we have the Loyal Wingman drone and other things where you're taking and augmenting a human warrior with, battlefield awareness, with, automatic defense against, the things that to make that creative mind be the most powerful possible. And that's what we should be doing. We should be empowering, serving, and safeguarding the humans in our lives.
hmm. I want to talk about Reston for just a moment. So, and just one quick point on AI. I mean, I completely agree. I like to look at it as like it makes you self-reflect and introspect of what's my uniqueness factor.
Yeah.
Because for two reasons. First of all, I always want to be able to do more of that. Whatever makes you truly exceptional, you want to quadruple down on that. And whatever you can patternize and delegate, you want to do that. But also, you want to stay above the AI curve because, like we mentioned earlier, look at this AI is just the aggregate of all the information out there,
Hmm.
and it'll give you the information that has the greatest consensus around that data pool.
That's exactly it.
And people who don't have a unique perspective on things, people who aren't, like you said, the Picasso of artists, are gonna feel the burn a lot more than people who are living above that curve. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about the day to day. So, Resden, what specific kind of services do you offer?
So we're focused mostly on enterprise software, helping companies get
Oh,
a single view of the truth, under empowering them with systems, databases, platforms that will empower their people, that will help them bless their customers, that'll
so it's
serve and
more like
safeguard
big
their data.
contracts for big companies.
That's historically where we've been. Right now, we're kind of launching in a new direction. We've kind of we're launching an incubator for developing applications that are going to be like SaaS applications, focused around the thesis that the future is human, and like taking the all the engineering acumen and the history and the knowledge around computing and saying we want to give people a competitive advantage in the marketplace, take away some of that fear, that dread, that worry, and give them tools that they are comfortable in a marketplace where they're
Mm,
competing with AI bots and other automation tools, and not to be a luddite or go back and manufacture buggy whips because horses are better or something, but to say we want to create a world in which the quality of human life is better, and part of that is having people having meaningful impact, having employment, being able to create and to innovate. And I do think we're going to see an unleashing, kind of, Renaissance style of the human creativity, which is something that humans, all of us, do uniquely well, right? Whether it's cooking or art or music or writing or whatever we bring, making a cup of coffee. I don't know. I can still tell the difference between a automated barista machine and its ability to make milk
well
and an
said, well said.
actual,
I could
human
too.
barista, right?
If you
um,
ever had to give a good example of how humans can't be replaced, that might be a like, pretty good one.
Yeah, it's like, so I think if we keep on resisting and saying like humans are valuable because of things that they aren't particularly good at, then yeah, we kind of get run over by people who miss the boat. But if we
Right.
start highlighting and realizing that every single human life, every single one, has a unique creative contribution to the human
Yeah.
race and to our communities, and how do we unlock that potential? How do we empower that potential? How do we serve that potential? That's the question we should be asking with the technology, rather than what seems to be so popular right now is how do we replace everybody in our institutions? I mean, uh, go down the Fortune 500 right now, and they're all talking about who they're going to lay off and who they
Right.
have laid off and whatever. And it's just, I think it's backwards thinking. I think it's self defeating. Ultimately, strategically,
Right.
damaging to their own enterprise to do that. And so I think you'll see the rise of human centric companies and the fall of those who think that humans can be replaced.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, it's a very unique perspective. And just out of curiosity on like when in terms of like you mentioned you do enterprise-based software, do you use a certain framework or do you have a particular language you guys code in, or it's really just really wide ranging and it's
We're
purely custom?
we're pretty technology agnostic. We go across all the major stacks, and it it really, we want to purpose build and align. What people often don't understand, like CIO magazine always kind of highlights how many IT projects fail, and when you look at why IT projects fail, they fail because there's a mismatch or misalignment between the technology that they're choosing and the solution they're looking to provide. And the people designing the project may not know that, or may not be able to close that gap efficiently during a project, or it may even be simply the requirements that were put out there weren't understood by the engineers that were trying to bring it to pass. One way or the other, technology alignment is way more valuable. So a lot of people will say, I want to buy, and then they put in what they think is the silver bullet, right? They're like, I need, Salesforce, it's the number one CRM in the world, or
Hmm.
whatever, right? And what they don't understand is that whether or not it's the number one CRM in the world isn't really the point. The question is it well aligned to what you're trying to do? Do you understand your human process? Do you understand your actual business? I think of like Jim Collins' Good to Great book, where he talks about the flywheels that make business go. And I think about he did a follow-on book after that, which was How the Mighty Fall, Why Some Companies Never Give In, which happened after the financial crisis, when some of his good to great companies like Circuit City failed and disappeared, and we don't have it anymore. And it's because they didn't understand what actually made that business work. And so often
Mm.
we take and we superimpose an ERP system or a CRM system or something in hopes that it will fix a flawed business process, or that it will accelerate something, without understanding that unless you can bring that into alignment with the human process, you're not going to receive the value that you would like out of it.
Hmm. Okay, here's a hypothetical. I'm a student graduating computer science or IT, and the world is very different today than it was 3, 4 years ago. I mean, you just go a little
Yeah.
bit back in time. You're a computer science graduate stepping into Silicon Valley. You can get 30 jobs in one day, and VC will not be able to throw enough money at you. It's a little different today. And I personally think it's a little shifting more to like cybersecurity with all these decentralized structures. There's much less recourse and we're a lot more preemptive about our security. But regardless, computer science guy, tech world, IT. And Steve, what is the number one piece of advice you can give me so I can best navigate this world?
I think the best piece of advice I've heard was from Aaron Levy, the CEO of Box.com. And he highlighted that um, deterministic uh, software is not going away. It's still required, it's still necessary to operate your business. Non-deterministic software creates, a lot of fun interfaces and a lot of fun, experiences
Explain the
around that.
difference between
So
non-deterministic and
if you look at, I mean, I would argue that they're all deterministic right now, but his
right.
point was, we have things like natural language processing and the AI chatbot interface, that the experience is to give you a non-deterministic experience. It's
Right.
designed to feel non-deterministic, right? It sounds like you're talking to a person, and we can talk about whether
Right.
the Turing test is actually an
I
effective test of AI or
In the
not.
sense, like, you'd put the same input in, but you get a different answer, so it's
Right?
not
Yeah.
necessarily you can't trace the steps of how you got from
You
A to
you
B.
feel like it's non-deterministic,
Right,
whereas
right.
if you go to an accounting system, you have GL, accounting system, and you put in the same 100
Correct.
numbers, you better get the
Mhm.
same answer every time, because otherwise that's a bad ERP system, right? I don't
That's
want your opinion or the aggregate synthesis of other people's ideas of ERP. I need to know how many dollars I have in my bank account, right? So I think when you look at that, if you and you look at AI and how AI is empowered, you look at like the model what are they called, MCPs, right, which are the actual functional elements that allow AI bot to read a file or to write a file or to browse a website, or I would say focus on those actual functional features that are necessary, because
Right.
that's where the real value is, right? All the fun noise that happens around that is just the ability to aggregate, synthesize, coordinate, or align those tools that have to be able to actually do something well.
Mm.
And in the same way that a core processor is just actually still the Pentium core at the heart of that's what core is, right? They renamed it core so that you wouldn't know it was Pentium, but the old Pentium 2 chip is still
Yeah.
cranking along, right? As every
Yeah, so and
core out.
exactly, when something looks magical and you apply the divide and conquer approach and you isolate it, you realize that, something looks like you see go on the street and you see someone breakdancing and they're doing like the windmill and you're like, "Whoa, that's so cool." It's like so many moves and it looks like a giant like magical event. But then you break down every single move and then you see how they're connected. It's kind of like demystified. And I
Yeah,
guess what you're saying is you focus on like those isolated points because at some point there is a very deterministic process and that's where the value is like the hard, the raw, the technical skill, learning how to do something with integrity, fault
yeah.
tolerance.
Create a
Yeah,
product
yeah.
that does something that humans need and does it well. So one of the things, I'm an avid shopper. I love shopping, and I don't think we've ever actually got an online shopping experience that's actually a shopping experience. And it comes down to the same way that online media never really caught the same editorial beauty of a newspaper,
Right.
right? The editors didn't just choose the turns of phrase used by their reporters. They also chose the positioning of that thing. So if you saw it on the front page, it meant a lot to the editorial staff. If you saw it tucked into some third section on the below the fold, right, it was like saying this isn't as relevant. And same thing like merchandising in a real store. You're walking in, you're feeling the fabric, you're seeing the screens,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
understand. And so people are right now exploring, can AI be a personal shopper? And I'm like, AI can be a personal shopper if we can get that more flexible interface of
Mm,
of the AI bots, the information it needs that you would have if you were shopping in person. So if you look, the real problem in online shopping is that the amount of information available to the consumer is incredibly limited to what somebody was willing to type into a description. And those descriptions usually are really trying to put a rosy hue on whatever it is, right? They're going to tell you that every single flat screen is the best, thing ever. It's the highest resolution and it's got all these stats. But if you walk down the line in Walmart and look at those screens, some of them have better pictures than others. Some of them pixelate more than others. Some have better refresh rates than others. Even if they have the same technical stats, some of them just look better. The quality of the
right.
chemicals in the screen look like, and you see that and you understand, you experience it. So
Mm.
if we can provide AI with a full, tangible experience of a product that it can
And
then
those are the and those
translate
and the
into
things that
recommendation,
make the
that would
things that
revolutionize online shopping.
yeah, but the here's why it gets difficult because the things that makes the coffee different than when a person made it is really hard to put in words. It's hard to put it in a sequential series of logic in a programming, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to like explain the difference of why one TV feels better to you than another, right? And sometimes you can even come up with reasons, but then you put two different TVs and then you're using that applied logic and it doesn't work because it doesn't translate because you choose the other one, right? Yeah, that's interesting
So
because
my undergrad degree was actually in physics, and I still remember, like, there's quantum mechanics and there's classical dynamics or whatever. The most interesting physics in some ways was the study of chaos, because
chaotic functions, yeah.
yeah, chaotic functions. And like, so you look at trying to explain turbulent airflow, right,
Mm,
over a wing. So you have an airfoil and you're trying to figure out the way the turbulence works on that. And it looks at the forefront like it's a like completely non-deterministic system. There's no way, like, math has a really hard time doing it. And then they started discovering that these really simple mathematical, like, recursive equations modeled out turbulent flow really well. And they went, well,
mm,
that's really interesting. And so the like it's interesting to find how do we do fractal math is how we do so much in tricking the eye into seeing pictures, right, or increasing the
right,
resolution
right.
of a picture. And because the math is actually really simple, right? You have a simple formula. I still remember the Mandelbrot set was the big fractal thing that we used to play with back in the 80s or 90s. And like, you could go into it forever and had all this, and like, what was the practical application, nobody knew, but it was fun. And I think that's the same kind of thing to realize is you say, well, you can't tell, it's a je ne sais quoi of that cappuccino that was just like, but
It's the
it
perfect
really is.
imperfections.
It's perfect. It really is the art of the uniformity and size of the bubble of the steamed milk and the temperature that it got to, and so the caramelization of the natural sugars in the milk and the relation between protein, the age of the milk has a huge impact on it. The freshness of the beans, like
Yeah.
there's a huge collection of data that
It's a
actually
chaotic
adds into
system, and
that.
these tiny variables create a huge difference in the output, and, you
But it's
can't
all
it's
it's all measurable, and it's all, observable, and it's all ultimately
yeah,
replicable with simple deterministic,
right. It
algorithms, and
seems
you know,
chaotic, but it's really not.
it seems
Yeah,
category
yeah,
really
yeah,
not.
yeah. I love that. Love that. Well, you mentioned a background in physics, so I just really would quickly want to tap on quantum computing for just a second, because
Yeah.
that really is a fascinating conversation. I mean, you know, it I guess I would ask you, like, do you think it's gonna replace, because the use case is not meant to replace, right? Sequential computers you have today are meant to do sequential functions, and then you have quantum computers that are just meant to solve a very different series of problems. Now, I mean, what's your perspective on that? I mean, do you think where, people are gonna have quantum computers in their house? Do you think that,
Oh,
yeah,
man.
on a practical level,
I
so
think so, probably. I mean, I mean, living here in Baltimore, the home of the very first personal computer ever, it was a huge console that took up a room, but, there we had, Ada Lovelace, I guess it is who did it, and, um the so I think there will be a lot of applications for quantum computing that are like regular consumer experience type, things
mm,
when we get it reduced to that point. It's still so early on. We're still in the room size computers that have, three
yeah.
flops or I was like, okay, well,
Qubits.
great.
I think
The
the
cube,
term is like quantum
exactly.
supremacy to
Um,
cross that, like, Rubicon of this is, like, now stuff that we can use
Yeah. I
today.
mean, I
Yeah.
think about it the same way you think about, I think about math, which is, if you look at, your mathematics, every time we came up with a problem we couldn't solve, we then had to add something to group theory in order to get a system which we could solve it, right? So you start and you have counting numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but then you can't say I have nothing. So then we add 0. And then, well, how do you say I have a debt with someone? Well, you have to add negative numbers, right? Well, how do you say that I don't have all of something? Well, then now you need fractions, then you need decimals, and then
Yeah.
so you slowly work up. Eventually, you get, well. There's things where I can't figure out the rate of change easily between something. So now I need to get not just real numbers. I need imaginary numbers in order to be able to do the integrals and the differential equations in order to solve complex rates of change. And
Right.
then that's not enough. We keep on just adding to group theory, and I think it's the same thing that you see in physical engineering, right? As we understand material science better, as we understand computing better, as we understand. I mean, when I was in college, optics was basically seen as a dead field, right? They're like, we don't even teach optics anymore because what was there to discover there? That's stupid.
That was even the argument for quantum mechanics. Like, hey, physics is just perfectly understood as black body radiation. There's a few small stuff
Yeah.
we don't really understand. Mercury's orbit around the sun. The math's a little off, but,
Mm,
like, what are you doing?
what are you doing?
Right?
Yeah,
Go find another field. I think that's what Max Planck's professor told him.
that's right. Go
And
find a
those are
different
like the
field.
areas that are like, oh, it's like it's all
Oh
backwards.
no, right?
Yeah.
And what is it? The Xerox went to Kodak, right? I think, and tried to get Kodak to invest, and they're like, no, we're silver halide, man. We don't want anything, And
No,
Xerox,
no, I
of
never heard
course.
of it.
There's tons of stories. I don't want to be someone saying quantum computing is not going to
Right.
have a huge number of use cases. I
And
think
what do you
somewhere in
think
the
about,
beginning.
like, what do you think about the issue around, I don't know if you heard this, but there's a term called harvest now, decrypt later. So, right? So just RSA encryptions, open key cryptography is just, it's not necessarily like security is just really a conversation about convenience, right? Because if it's I'm comforted to know that my information hidden behind this password is less valuable than 80 years of this guy's time, right? And that's
Right.
why I feel safe. But, that's going to change eventually. And right now you can take encrypted data and it's just gibberish, and I'm not scared if someone steals an encrypted transmission of my password from one place to another. But what apparently a lot of people, a lot of bad actors are doing is they're harvesting all this encrypted data,
Yeah.
and they're like, in 10, 15 years from now, when quantum computers
We have a data
come to
store, and we can do
fruition.
something about it.
Yeah, so, like, okay, cool, you can have quantum safe cryptography today, but all your old data is gonna kinda be, from database links and whatnot, is gonna be
Well,
public
and people
information.
don't
That's, like,
really
a frightening.
understand that there's been a big shift in the cybersecurity space around who's playing and why they're playing, right? And so we're still imagining that there's the fraudsters are out there playing for money, and there's still plenty of people trying to do ransomware scams and get a
I mean,
Bitcoin,
ransomware is a great example of,
right?
like, an industry that's explosive now because you
Yeah.
have monetary transactions without recourse. So
But
there's a
I
whole
think the more
incentive
interesting
model.
thing is to see, like, the SolarWinds, hack, right? Where they just exfiltrated mass amounts of data and then nothing happened. Right? And I went,
Mm,
"Well, I don't understand. Why did nothing happen? Like, shouldn't they be, like, taking all of the credit cards and doing like, what was going on?" And it's like, it's actually an intelligence operation, right? And so the information is valuable in and of itself, like, the discovery of, American economic systems and Fortune 500, boardroom decisions and whatever else they were trying to exfiltrate through that avenue was of such different value than people were expecting that I think they're still processing and trying to decide what the impact of it was, right? And so I
mm,
think you're seeing right now the massive rise of state level players with state level budgets and state level technology coming after infrastructure, in a cyber warfare kind of thing of saying, why is it that Microsoft is announcing all these major, attacks against their infrastructure, and Google's announcing all these major attacks against their infrastructure? It's We're literally testing each other on the information battlefield to see, what we're capable of doing, the information we're capable of deriving. We're deploying applications that consumers are stupid enough to use that are intelligence gathering operations, like you name it, right? They go across like, and I think Elon Musk early on, before he became an AI magnate, said some pretty accurate things about AI, which is that we're watching the death of information because the ability for humans to discern the difference between information and misinformation, with the increase in volume of information, goes down. And
mm.
in the same way that, like, once again, looking at that editorial, quality of, of old school media, right? It used to mean that if you read it in a book, it was trustworthy because there was so much
Yes.
money and time and effort put into producing that book that, the Encyclopedia Britannica guys, they went out of the way to make sure that thing was accurate before they put, ink to
Yeah,
paper.
it's like the proof of work process for,
Right.
but, like,
100%. Like, well, but the proof of work is a problem because it takes so much power that now we're, powering small countries just for operating the blockchain.
right.
So
But
it,
exactly, now
you have to
now
come up
it's
with
like
something
there's
else.
so much information that 2 things are happening, that just everything is noise. There's just
Yeah.
so mu data has become so cheap, exactly. Editorial, you'd have to get it approved, it'd have to go into print, someone would have to pay money to print it, someone have to pay money to pick up the copy, and now it's just like it takes 2 seconds, you just press publish on a WordPress site and, you're done.
Well, not only that, but think about how many news outlets, like formal news outlets, republish press releases as content, not taking them as insight to go and do editorial research and fact checking, whatever against, but literally just, I posted,
Yeah.
right?
And then
So
and it's also, like, spun and it's just there's
yeah.
data is cheap now, exactly, and it brings down the value of everything, yeah, it's just a weird place, so it's a weird world we're heading in. I mean, just data is becoming cheaper, and now even, like, you talked about the Turing test where, like, now I even, like, I look at content and I see things online, I even see videos online, and I'm like, "Actually,
Is
I'm
that
really
real?
good at deciphering these
Yeah.
things." And I'm even like, I gotta look at those fingers there, I gotta look at the blurriness, how's the movement in the background, and the light and the shadows, and I'm like, "This is a weird world." And, like, I remember watching a video just, like, a year and a half ago of Will Smith eating spaghetti. Did you see that
Right.
video?
Yeah.
And that was, like, the the top of the line AI output, and this delta is insane. This rate of change is hyperbolic to the point where we're completely losing our predictive power of what the future is gonna be like.
So,
And
but think about this. So, if we care about that as a human race, right, then we should require, because we now have the machines that can do it. This isn't asking for human effort. This isn't hard to do. They already know it because the way the algorithms are built to derive that solution. Give me a reliable path to the actual origin of the information you're showing me. Right? Every AI algorithm can do it. we aren't doing it. And
But
if you ask
that still doesn't solve the
people,
problem,
tell
because
you,
my second point, which I was gonna say, was now we've muddied the water of what is objectivity.
yeah.
Objectivity has become subjective. And that is the real problem as well. Like, we can't even agree on baseline facts. Like, mathematics works because we agree there are these axiomatic objective truths. I mean, we don't know if they're true, but they're axiomatic in the sense that we're confident that there's some truth to them because things work because of them, right? We don't agree on anything anymore. Like, nothing.
So the question is that
Is
a
that a bring
positive?
is that a bring them home sticker behind you?
Oh, this one right here. This is
Yeah.
end child sexual abuse sticker.
Oh, okay.
But I
Wonderful.
also believe
Cool.
I also am all about bring them home. 100%.
Okay. I was just like, cool, cool.
Amen. Until every hostage is free, man. Let's go. Um
Okay. Yeah, and
uh
I'm for both of those causes. So yes, bring everyone home.
oh my god. Like yeah, we could talk about that. But yes, the and I think that's a great example actually of what is information, right? And if I place emotional content behind a statement, does it make it true? What does make it true, and how do you
Right.
validate that it's true? And can we create tools and machines and mechanisms and systems in order to verify and validate that aren't just another layer of human opinion. So like
Right.
if you look at the first generation of content moderation, it was people moderating people, and people are all biased and
Right.
have their viewpoints and other things they want to bring and the points they're trying to make. And so our first iteration of content moderation is we don't believe the moderators. And so we at first we thought this was a
Right.
great thing, and then we've discovered that that's a terrible algorithm because all you're doing is giving bias to a
Right. And it's like
given
this
viewpoint.
and
So I think we're actually going in a positive direction because I think
mhm,
as a human race we're kind of recognizing that the truth matters, and now asking how do we actually want to get to it, because historically we went to institutions of power, right? And we said, well, if the church said it, it's true. If the government said it, it's true. If ABC, NBC, and CBS
argument from
agree,
authority.
right?
Yeah.
It's true. And now looking back at the history, we know that a lot of the things that they said were dogmatic, ideological, and otherwise not based in fact or observation. And so I think we're kind of in the growing pains of
Mm.
human consciousness
I
around the
love your
truth.
optimism, Steve.
But
So it's just you always got the most optimistic. I have such a cynical dystopian view compared to you. I mean, sometimes people take like a kernel of truth. Now, here's the
Mhm.
thing: I'm not a cynical person at all, but this is where it gets even muddied because like it's like you can stem your thesis on a kernel of truth and extrapolate outwards to the point where you had already your determination, and now you're picking these little pieces of truth, kind of diluting them and distorting them in a very unique way, and then putting them together to paint a narrative. And that's not true either, right? So it's
Well, I
it's
mean,
people are really good at these things.
we come back to like why is it great being a developer, right? Because at the end of the day, reality is factually objective, and we're all operating inside of a factually objective reality, and
Right.
our opinions about it make our decisions higher quality or lower quality, but it doesn't actually alter the objective fact. The question is, can I get to a place where I can discover, and operate on that objective reality or not? And we have all these tools we've created over time. Descartes famously had his plate glass window analogy, saying that the five senses are really a huge obstruction to
No.
science, because they're all corrupted, and so I don't get to really see and observe reality. I have to look through these five senses, which are so corrupt.
Think
And
therefore I am, as they say.
right, and
Yeah.
well, and that was his statement of despair, not a statement of discovery. So
Fair enough.
people have been complaining about the tools and mechanisms for the discovery of information for the entirety of humanity. I mean, what
Right.
was the original sin that got Adam and Eve kicked out of Eden? Right? Is they wanted the knowledge of the tree of good, good and evil. They already had the knowledge of good. Right? What was the only thing they were going to discover by eating that tree? The knowledge of
Mm.
evil. Why'd they want that? Well, I don't know, because we wanted to figure out the information, know all the stuff, and like I think there's a huge difference and gap between human, knowledge and intelligence, and human, like, wisdom and insight. And
Right.
when we prioritize insight and wisdom, we can bring information into, service to it. Then we're going to create machines and mechanisms and processes to help people to discern between good information, bad information. And it's like people always like look at the movie Wall Street, where Michael Douglas famously says greed is good, and they're like, oh, he's such a wicked man, that's so terrible, he's a corporate raider and he's terrible, whatever. And I'm like, well, the human brain has two fundamental signals in the lizard brain. One is opportunity or greed, and the other is fear or survival, depending on how you want to couch it.
Hmm.
And so people are like, well, fear is bad. I'm like, well, your brain just fire fear signal is just keeping you alive. So it's a productive
Fear is
thing,
opportunity. Just look at the fear and greed index in the stock market. If
right?
you were to
Yeah,
do
it's the whole
literally
thing
just buy on the fear and sell on the greed, you'd be a rich man.
right. What is it they always say? The bulls make money and the bears make money and the pigs get slaughtered, right? It's that's true. And when you understand that about the human brain, you can use both signals productively, right? But
Mm,
when you're controlled by either one, and so you shut down your neocortex in order to serve your amygdala, going, "I want the greed signal," right? You end up doing harmful things to yourself and other people.
right. Steve, I mean, I think this is one of my longest episodes. I feel like I
I'm
can
so
talk to you
sorry.
for no, I mean, I want to thank you because you're just such a an amazing person to speak with. You're just a wealth of knowledge, and
But
what's supposed to be 20 minutes is teetering on an hour. So I don't. I want to be respectful to your time, but I want to say thank you for the hour you've given me because it's been an
yeah.
honest pleasure. And Steve, how can people get in touch with you?
You can go to my website, reston.com, or contact me at steve at reston.com.
Steve, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
So much. I appreciate it. It's great being on.